In ancient times, stewarding sacred sexuality was a path of deep training, passed through mystery schools and held by women known as priestesses. Today, the word priestess is rising again. But what does it really mean to embody this role and bring sexual healing into the world? Was Mary Magdalene herself one of these great priestesses? In this episode, we're going to explore the powerful resurgence of divine feminine teachings and how the sacred union of Mary Magdalene and Jesus, or Yeshua, can activate your own dormant sexual power with our incredible, amazing guest, Dr. Marguerite Rigoglioso. I am Dr. Willow Brown, and I'm here with Leah Piper. This is Sex Reimagined, and we're so grateful for all your likes, shares, and subscribes. Keep them coming.
This is really exciting, you guys. This is going to be something that really kind of goes back into some deep roots. So tune in, turn on, and fall in love with Marguerite.
Welcome to the Sex Reimagined podcast, where sex is shame-free and pleasure-forward. Let's get into the show.
Welcome to
Thanks
the
for
show,
having me.
Marguerite.
Yeah, thank you. Woo! And we're here finally.
We're here. Tell us about your journey into this work and, you know, the deep teachings and the deep trainings. I mean, you've been studying for decades now. You've written books. I read your book. It was amazing. And I'm just so curious, like, what early on got you headed down this road?
Yeah, well, if you're talking about the road of Magdalene and the sexual healing of humanity, that's kind of more recent. But if you're talking for me, like the last couple of years since I've taught a course on this, but connecting with the Magdalene happened decades ago. I'm trying to think, 35 years ago, something like that, connecting with Magdalene, connecting with Mother Mary, and then understanding what they were about sexually. Yes, that goes way back, but it started with understanding about the nature of, divine birth as like actually a sexual act. So unlike how we have been led to believe about it, where it has to do with virginity and lack of sexual feeling, it was actually a profoundly sexual act to engage in parthenogenesis the way Mother Mary did, the way her mother did, the way her Aunt Elizabeth, mother of John the Baptist, did, and the way, numerous women throughout time, priestesses, have engaged. So that's a whole topic in and of itself. And then there's the topic of, and I've been at that, like I said, for decades.
Well, let's start there. So, because I'm really curious about what led you to study that. How did you find these understandings, where these teachings come from,
and
so
also,
on and so forth?
When you say divine birth, you're basically talking about like immaculate conception. And there's sort of a lot of people aren't familiar with the fact that it wasn't just Mother Mary who had that experience, that there were others in the Essene lineage, which was a whole spiritual, I don't know what to call it, a spiritual cult or sect, I would say.
Yeah. Well, divine birth is what I call it, because immaculate conception is sort of a confusing church doctrine, and blah, blah, blah. I won't even go there. But what I call it is divine birth, and there were various ways in which it happened. Some were partnered, and some were not partnered. So the not partnered part was parthenogenesis, where the woman had to be such an advanced adept with her sexual energy that she was able to be yin and yang within herself and literally conceive a very high level being. And the way I describe this as being sexual is her experience was ecstatic. It was like becoming one with the universe itself. It was like the universe making love to itself would be that kind of experience of divine conception, right? So powerfully erotic. And as I investigated this, especially with Mother Mary, I realized, oh gosh, she had to draw on her kundalini heat. She had to draw on her inner womb fire. She had to, draw on the powers of the universe. And in order to have this conception happen at these quantum physics levels, we might call it, right? And the way I think some people might be able to understand this is if you've ever had an altered state experience where you suddenly feel like you're one with the universe, or you suddenly feel like you're one. Some people have experiences of sex with gods or things like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's profoundly erotic, right? And I've had that kind of experience. Like, I really understood that how the Delphic Oracle received her oracles was to receive the energetic phallus of Apollo. And that was like, whoa, that's why these women had to be celibates at the time, in terms of they're not cavorting with men, human men. They
Right.
had to belong to the god for that process, which was a sexual experience that would then open up their oracle channel, right? So there are many ways in which sexuality has been expressed and used in the ancient and modern worlds that we don't think of because it's been suppressed. We don't look at it. We also don't look at, for example, in the ancient mysteries, why were the baskets that these initiates would carry when they were going through like the Eleusinian mysteries and so forth, why were they phalluses? Why there were representations of vaginas like pretty much life size, What was that all about? So I'm the one who's lifted the lid on when people experienced the Eleusinian mysteries in ancient Greece, which was an experience to have oneness with the goddess Demeter and the goddess Persephone. It was a sexual act that was initiatory for them. They would have to insert a dildo into themselves while they're in this high altered state with the medicine that they were drinking in order to understand this sexual journey that they were going to be on that was akin to Persephone being abducted, quote unquote, raped, quote unquote, into the underworld, right? So I'm just giving you a little taster of all of these many ways that sexuality has shown up in the ancient world, and we don't understand that. So, going back to Mother Mary having a profound cosmic orgasm when she is conceiving Jesus, that's what I think happened. And then there's a lineage of this tantric conception that goes from parthenogenesis, what Mother Mary did, all the way up to the sacred marriage rites that the kings and queens or kings and priestesses would engage in like, for example, ancient Egypt, where we have the stories that, the pharaohs were born by the union of this priest king and this priestess coming together. That was a high tantric activity. It was a kind of a divine birth because of the energies they were pulling in for those conceptions. But of course, very, very sexual, right? So there's sex has been hidden by the church, by academia. And along comes me, and I'm like, wow, not only is divine birth or virgin birth real, but it is something that had a very deep sexual component. And then, of course, if we look at Magdalene and Jesus, Magdalene and Yeshua, theirs was definitely the lover type, the sacred marriage type of sexuality, and would have had to have been very high tantra for what the types of beings they wanted to bring in.
So it's interesting. My mind I want to get our listeners kind of on the same page as us. My mind goes to, we've talked about like in Tantra, there's white Tantra where you're in practice, you're in union, you're self-cultivating with nature or with the universe or with yourself. Yeah, it's like it's your own cultivation practice.
Solo practice.
And so we talk about white Tantra as really important to to bringing a fuller cup to a red tantric practice, which is where you're practicing with another. So that's basically
Yeah.
kind of what you're talking about. And
Exactly.
yeah, and I think it's so profound to to think about. I mean, that's one of the things we're doing here on Sex Reimagined is reimagining what is possible within sexuality and the energetics of sexuality that go far beyond the physicality.
That's right.
I myself have had those experiences where it's like I am just fucking the universe or being
Yeah.
fucked by the universe and
Yeah.
having like these incredible orgasmic, expansive, rapturous experiences. Haven't
Yeah.
been able to conceive through those, thank
Yeah.
God, because I don't want to conceive, but what a higher level of adeptness that, that those women were practicing. And also they were in a time where it's like, that's what they were doing. They were living
right.
together in sisterhood and union to really cultivate such deep, profound and ancient sexual practices. So we talk
Yeah.
about in the Taoist tradition, that a lot of there's a practice called turning back the blood, where you can actually stop your menstrual cycle and you stay that age, whatever age you stop
Wow.
it at. But, you got to
It's
be
kind
like,
of like the equivalent of semen retention.
yeah,
but
exactly.
Oh my God, I
from
love
a female
that.
perspective.
Exactly. But, in order to be able to do that, you got to be living in the monostery, eating with all the other
Right.
women and just doing tons of practice.
Lots of
all the-
purification
Oh my
practices.
No
God,
stress
that makes-
allowed.
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
sugar
Oh, yeah.
allowed.
That
all
makes
the
so
things.
much sense to me. You're like blowing doors wide open in my mind. Like these were the original holy orders for women, right? They
Mhm.
were hardly repressive. They were, in fact, very much the woman was controlling, learning how to control her powers, learning how to activate, and then it degenerated into lack of sexual feeling, shutting off of the sexual feeling, virginity as an asexual path, anti-sexual path. We all have these past life disturbing memories of that, right? And then the church really capitalized on that because they need to shut down women's wombs so that we can't access that power. That's how these patriarchal forces that are governed by negative interdimensional beings, if you will, control the planet. They've shut down all the sexual centers of women and men, but especially women, because women do not need men in order to have their womb opened and be able to do these empowering things, from impregnation all the way to sending out lines of healing through the universe, healing others, sending out forces of creativity and manifestation, right? So they've wanted to shut that down. And this is why also Sri Kaleshwar, the late Hindu saint, was gathering all these materials, these mantras and these yantras, these drawings from the ancient palm leaf manuscripts to say, hey, there's a whole ancient empowering practice that the 7 rishis, the Sapta rishis, were keeping undercover for all of us that have to do with the holy womb chakra system, the womb as its own chakra, right? And so a lot, I've been teaching this, I've been using this, I healed myself of numerous uterine things with this. I've seen it with others. There's just so many angles we could talk about here. I'm just trying to give out some, splats.
I think it's really interesting that there is this ancient energetic technology that us as modern people are very ignorant even exists.
Yes.
People still have a hard time believing that energy even exists, which kind of boggles my mind. I'm like, we're just these really fast moving molecules that are filled with energy. We are energy. We're electromagnetic fields. How can energy not affect us? But because we can't see it, we have a hard time believing it. Until you start to feel it, then it becomes unquestionable. What's coming to mind for me is Teresa of Avila, Saint Teresa of Avila, who also had her own spiritual experiences of feeling the 7 internal castles and feeling the serpent rising, very reminiscent of Kundalini awakening. And the association with chakras is really fascinating. Here we have an ancient Catholic mystic who is
Yes.
having these experiences of making love to Jesus on an energetic level. And her priest, as she believes it's like, something's wrong with me. And her priest thinks it may be the devil. It's telling her, you just need to fast more. You just need to fast more.
Right.
Well, what's fasting going to do? But bring on more spiritual, energetic
That's
phenomenon.
right.
Which are
That's
meditations
right.
and prayers.
Well,
Really, really cool.
I love women, these angles that you're getting. I mean, you're coming in from various perspectives and looking at Teresa of Avila or the nunhoods or whatever. I mean, this is amazing. I feel like it's worlds coming together just in this conversation, validating one another and understanding on so many multidimensional levels what you both have been talking about for years and what I have. I mean, this is very cool.
Now, I do have a question about, and for some reason, my Midwest tongue butchers this every time. Eleusinium, say the temple name.
The Eleusinian mysteries from
the
Eleusis.
Yeah,
from
so
Eleusis in
we've been
Greece.
there. I've been there. Have you been there?
Yes.
Yeah, so my husband's
Yes.
obsessed with this.
Okay.
Willow and I are taking a group of women to Greece. We're taking them
Oh
to
my
Crete
God.
and to Santorini on a pilgrimage of the
Wow.
primordial goddess. And so we're really excited to do that. I wish we had time to take them to the temple, but we don't. But my husband and I will visit it again. We're extending our trip a bit. And so I'm curious how you felt when you visited this holy site.
All right. Well, first of all, recommendation,
Mm-hmm.
suggested reading. You might want to get my book called Virgin Mother Goddesses of Antiquity.
Okay.
And the whole
Great.
second half is the chapter on Demeter and Persephone, the Thesmophoria mysteries, the Eleusinian mysteries, and my whole analysis of what went on and how sexual that was.
Cool.
I
No
believe it.
scholar has even been able to address it because they can't. It's so well argued that they can't shut it down, but they just ignore it because I'm saying that, well, the people use dildos and so
I mean, they
forth.
have those in museums.
Right?
It's not,
They're all
they
over.
don't exist. Or that
No.
women are somehow unsexualized. We still have this really archaic belief
That's
that
right.
women's sexuality is basically male sexuality, only
That's
the
right.
light version,
Right.
which could not be further from the truth.
That's right. Especially because in this mystery, it was the opposite. Male sexuality had to become the female sexuality in the rite. The men would insert the phallus in their anus. And it was, so the normative was the woman receiving the phallus in the vagina. So secondarily, the men would have, because it was a whole women mystery. The mother, daughter goddesses, Demeter and Persephone. It was the Shakta universe that was being accessed there. So the men had to come in line. And in fact, the Caesar, one of the Caesars, had to take on the feminine form of his name after he had this initiation. And the sacred priest, the Hierophant, would have to be symbolically castrated by drinking hemlock as part of this
Interesting.
ritual.
Wow.
He had to become a woman. So this was a whole woman thing, right? Finally, yeah, the female sexuality was the baseline for this experience, right?
Now, how did you come about this information? Is this something that you've channeled? Is this something that you've researched through
No.
academia? What's been your form of
I just
information?
researched it. I just
Uh-huh.
researched it. That Eleusinian Mysteries piece, I researched it. I looked at all the pieces and even the virgin birth stuff. I researched it. And I realized now it initially came as a flash of insight. Oh my God, virgin birth is real. One day I was in my brother's apartment in 2001. I was like, boom. I had read this book and I was in this open state. And I was like, my God, virgin birth is real. And then I was looking at all of this information about ancient priestesses of of Greece. And I started finding boatloads of information to support the idea that virgin birth was real, that it had been going on in the ancient Greek time, Egyptian time, all over, ancient Sumer, etc. And so it was like the intuition was the spark that put hydrogen and oxygen together and created water for me. The water was the truth of virgin birth and the whole analysis of the priestesshoods, right? Or what was going on at Eleusis, right? And it all started coming together. It made total sense of disparate pieces of information that no scholar had really been able to make sense of. And all of a sudden, I come up with this theory that is like the complete theory of everything, and that even the Eleusinian mysteries had a very strong divine conception and birth process associated with it. That was part of the ritual as
Say more
well.
about that.
Yeah.
The high priestess would be periodically conceiving a child, which is the Dionysus, the little Dionysus that would come out of this this
So
experience.
ritualistic sex?
Well, not really, because the high priest was castrated through hemlock, so he didn't have an erection, presumably, during this thing. She's basically engaging in parthenogenetic
Now, define
self-conception.
parthenogenetic.
Parthenogenesis comes
Yeah.
from parthenos, which means virgin or maiden, and gignes, thigh, to be born. So
Okay.
parthenogenesis, to be born of a virgin or a maiden. But
Okay.
really, it was the title of these sacred priestesses who were schooled in divine conception technologies originally.
Okay.
And so that's why Mother Mary is called a parthenos in the Bible and so forth.
So I want to also talk about what is virginity. Because when we look at virginity means has not been penetrated by a penis. Boys can be virgins. Girls can be virgins. Though many times women are going to be penetrated with something other than a penis before they're penetrated by a penis. Also, we can be penetrated by dildos. We can be penetrated by fingers. What does that mean for our virginity? Then we have the misunderstanding of what a hymen is. A hymen has no biological function. It is not the meaning of virginity like we teach it. A hymen is actually one of these leftover pieces between like we've got tissue that biologically makes no sense. For instance, men having nipples. There is no biological function for male nipples. They don't nurse, right? By and large. We do
Although
know that
in
there
some
are some, I
cultures-
know, but
Okay,
it's
okay.
very, 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 very
It's
teeny.
small,
It's not a
yeah.
widespread biological thing, and there's a lot of things that have to do to make that work.
Yeah.
A lot of biological circumstances. In any event, the hymen is the same thing. From my understanding, from the book Come As You Are, the hymen is actually something that is connected to the male prostate, which has no function in a woman. And a woman having a female prostate, which actually comes before the male prostate, which is what we now consider the G-spot. The hymen also can be perforated. It can be partially there. Women who are postmenopause can still have their hymen. So the hymen as a symbol of virginity is a total construct. It is meaningless. And so I'm curious, when you use the word virgin, what exactly are you referring to? And is virginity even real? If I imagine virginity to be real, it's like this weird, a penis has to go into a vagina for the first time. And we've got all sorts of people who are not attracted to the opposite sex. So do they remain virgins their whole life because they've never been penetrated by a penis? So on and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, these are great questions. And in my very first book, The Cult of Divine Birth in Ancient Greece, I talk extensively about the meaning of virginity and the meaning of that word parthenos, and parthenogenesis and what it means. And what it comes down to is that these parthenos refers to a woman who had chosen the path of inner tantra, okay? Now, she would need to refrain from having sexual intercourse with a man as a part of that, because the insertion of the phallus would disrupt her whole sovereign system for this particular type of practice, right? So these women would be celibates for various periods of time, and celibacy, virginity, was renewable. And that's one thing we learn of from the goddesses' statues. Like Hera would have her virginity renewed every year. It literally, like in India, Nandu Menon would talk about in Kerala, his aunties would restore a woman's virginity after rape. Like there are energetic techniques to release all that energy. And also the holy womb chakra mantras that I talk about, they release any previous energy that you've had from anyone. Touch, insertion, whatever it is, phalluses, whatever. So
kind of like a baptism, like you can sort of be born again.
Yeah. Yep. You can be virginified, re-virginified. And these women would sometimes engage in high sex rites, and then they would return to their virginity. Okay. And then they would, do it again, but they weren't like having sex all the time with male partners or things like that. And there's a whole, I talk about in the Cult of Divine Birth in ancient Greece and Virgin Mother Goddesses of Antiquity, that there were these sisterhoods, these priestesshoods that were lesbian in sexual orientation. The ones that were associated with Artemis and the ones that were associated with Athena, and particularly Artemis, suggesting that these girls would learn sexual feeling, sexual energy in groups with other girls.
I was going to say, what about the sexuality between the priestesses?
As part of this priestess training. So they learn sexual energy, but they connected it with women, so they connected it with women. And it was a whole thing related to these goddesses that were like, we don't want the phallus anywhere near us because those are connected with the negative reptilian forces, and we don't want that.
Okay. Well, that's too bad.
Well,
I'm like, I imagine that there were male devotees there to also service the priestesses and all the pleasures that they could have wanted.
Potentially, yes.
Maybe different periods of time, maybe different
but it does make sense that, women would learn about their sexuality
from other women.
It is such a different style of sexuality from other women who really, that's kind of what we're doing at our Greece retreat. We're not having like lesbian orgies, but we're like helping, women who are not very far along their sexual exploration and relationship with themselves. We're mixing those with people who are really far along their journey and have a very close relationship with themselves. And with the expectation that like it's going to infuse. Just a total side note, the other night I went to a handpan drumming party with like 15 people. And some are super fucking good. Like they really know what they're doing. They have $6,000 handpans. And I'm like a beginner, but like just being in the field and drumming with all of those other people, while it didn't sound good for like the first half of the time, by the end there was some synergy, and I started to like things started
find
to
the
move
rhythm
through me.
The embodied knowledge being passed to your system. Yeah.
So we say it all the time. Like if you want to up level your system in some way, whether that's in sexuality or financially or health-wise, in any way, put your body next to somebody that has that, and it just transmits.
I love that. That is so amazing. I feel like, wow, we just went down roads upon roads. I don't know where we began in the conversation, but that is so interesting to me, and I love how you're going to be in Greece working with women in this way. Oh my God, I wish that's amazing.
We're excited.
Yeah, it's exciting.
I think
great group. When women can turn towards their own bodies, and especially into their own womb space, to discover a felt sense towards their own inner guidance, to their own wisdom portal. Because through this shared womb experience as vulva-owning bodies, we can tap into an ancient wisdom that we've got access to. It's just most of our mothers didn't know that and didn't know how to turn us towards that so that we can start self-referencing instead of other referencing to really find the answers that are the most authentic path forward as we are encountering obstacles in our life, hardship, pain, suffering, but also bliss and joy, and learn how to amplify that bliss and joy and run that system through our bodies so
Oh,
that we can then run that to all sectors of our life. I think we're all literally sitting on a well of power and spiritual insight that we just need to learn how to tap into, and
It's
then we
called
can
your
affect a lot of change.
universe.
Yeah.
that's
Just
right.
open
I
it up.
love what you women are saying. I mean, what you're doing is so amazing. I mean, this is definitely new compared to what was going on 30 years ago. I can tell you that much. But it makes sense as like these next steps, and you're figuring it out. You've put it all together. You've received your own information on this. You're pulling from different parts of the Akashic Records library. It's just extraordinary. I mean, we so need this.
Yeah, we
Yeah, we
so
do
need
need a
it.
return to this ancient wisdom that these
Yeah.
mystery schools knew so much more about and had
Yeah.
so many more decades and generations of
Yeah.
practice. Now, my understanding is also in the Tantric school, more in the Indus Valley perhaps than in Greece, is that it was also these priestesses that taught men the sexual arts. So the
Oh,
training actually passed down from the priestesses to the boys so that they could understand the art of love, because most people are going to be householders. Most
yeah.
people are not going to be serving in the temples. They're going to
Yeah.
be having families. And so how do you prepare how to have this high octave lovemaking so that everyday people can also have an experience of a rich spiritual life? And so, Tantra being one of the only yogas that saw sexual union as a permissible part of spiritual evolution. And so I'm curious what you know about how the priestesses served the community.
Right. First of all, that's amazing. I mean, what I personally know is in recent decades, I knew at least one or more African American women who felt that they came from matriarchal cultures and heritages in Kemet and other parts of Africa and so forth. And they would say to me, "Oh yeah, the older women initiate the younger men into sex
It
Mhm.
makes
because of
so much sense.
because of
Yeah.
exactly what you're saying." So this is like a long time matriarchal practice in the sense of matriarchy not being like an abusive female-oriented system,
Right.
but rather a system of balance that has women at the center, right?
Is it balance if we're trying to take men and have them operate sexually from this feminine perspective? I mean, I'm certainly
Yes.
all about anal penetration for men and their pleasure. But in terms of how is that balancing versus complementing?
Right. Well, first of all, I mean, this goes into the whole discussion of what is matriarchy, and I've studied this extensively, okay? But matriarchy is not the reverse of patriarchy as we know it. Patriarchy is an abusive system governed by yang and oftentimes male forces um, who are out of control, out of balance in themselves, suppressing anything that isn't male and isn't, of a certain culture, whatever, down the line, and then suppressing native peoples and animals and children and all this and that. Okay, that's kind of how we've grown up with patriarchy. But matriarchy, as it is originally informed and practiced, and there are still matriarchies around the world, is a society of peace. It's a society of balance. It's a society of complementary roles. It's not like, oh, in matriarchy, all the women are driving, the tractors, and no, like, they're doing their role, the men are doing their role, but there's no problem there, okay? Because everything is in balance, everything is in harmony. It's a whole different social structure where the children are raised in group fashion, all this. So in certain matriarchies, it would be natural sexuality is far more frank, and
Right.
there may not even be anything such as marriage, or such as certainly not nuclear family marriage, monogamous marriage, And so if right now because of how patriarchy has distorted our sexuality so much, you really can need the balancing of the female initiatrix to the young men for them to understand, because otherwise, where are they going to learn it? We know
Well,
that
even
they're learning
even
it.
in more recent history, it was pretty traditional for fathers to bring their young boys to the prostitutes in order to learn
Yeah,
about
I was like,
sexuality.
that's
And
right.
there was sacred prostitution and there was
Yeah.
profane prostitution.
Yes,
There's all these different levels and layers.
exactly. To get back to your question, Leah, about the priestessing, yes, there is some evidence that there was sacred prostitution or sacred tantra,
Yeah.
not prostitution. I mean, there were these women and men actually in the Hebrew temples. You can find that in Kings and various places in the Hebrew Bible. Okay, there was sexual activity in these temples, and then there is evidence that certain priestesses of Aphrodite might have been practicing this kind of thing. There is potential evidence that there were women in the Roman times who would soothe the soldiers who came back from war in these ways. Okay. And whenever in the academic world, when I was in academia and trying to promote this idea, oh my God, the amount of hostility that I'd be met with was really quite something. But it really feels like, these priestesses of Aphrodite in particular were involved in this kind of thing. And hopefully there's been updated scholarship on this to really look at what was going on. But yes,
Yeah,
sexuality is part of spirituality. Big deal.
One of the things you just mentioned, I want to highlight, which is that, men would come back from war, and before they could go home to their families and their homes and their communities, they would go through the temples and be cleansed by the sacred sexual rites, right? They would be healed, they would be cleansed, they would be
In order to be
cleared
fit
of
for
the
society again.
traumas.
Yeah,
Yeah.
return to their families.
Imagine if we did that to soldiers
I
coming
know.
back
Imagine.
these days. What a
Oh
different
my
world that
God,
would be.
Yeah.
I
forget-
mean,
Yes, exactly. And you know what? And here's the thing. Even if you can't make the historical case that that was happening, it's such a wise, great idea that it's something we do need to do. We know that it would create healing.
absolutely.
We know that
How
these
much
are the
better
kinds
do you
of things.
feel after you have an amazing orgasm? How much more
Yeah.
open? How much more smiley? How much more
That's
connected? Like
right.
you've got
Hormones totally shift.
oxytocin flowing through your
I
body.
know,
All the cortisol is out, and you're
Yeah.
ready to receive the gifts of the universe.
Yeah,
I
the
think even
irritations.
in marriage, like way back in ancient times, the women would go and they would have to go through these sacred sexual rites to prepare their bodies. Like instead
Yes.
of going into marriage as a virgin, you would have to go have a sexual rites experience in order to prepare your body for the sacred act of marriage and union, which I think
Very
is fascinating.
interesting.
Yeah, you
Yes.
learn about having some orgasms, so you actually have orgasms
Yeah.
when you get
When you're married.
when you pair bond with somebody.
I mean, because that's a whole big thing, and also, I mean, well, there's just been a lot of interference with our orgasms on a lot of levels by a lot of different types of beings. And one thing we haven't actually even talked about yet is what's in the Gnostic Gospels about the origin of sexual misery with humanity at the inception of the splitting of the sexes, the splitting of the original androgyne into Adam and Eve. Okay? That was a nice little trick of these negative forces, so that this idea of Eve coming out of Adam's rib was a garbled way of describing that these negative forces had taken the whole human body and had split it. Okay, that's in a number of different traditions into male and female when we used to be one whole. Okay, so then that created a problem. They split the sexes into male and female, and then these beings, these negative angelic forces, raped both of them. Eve got raped, Adam got raped. It started pederasty, and it started rape on the human family. That is in the Gnostic Gospels. Okay,
You don't
so
hear about that very often.
No, you don't.
well,
And
you don't
that-
get to hear about the Gnostic Gospels very often. That's probably why.
That's
Right.
right.
Yeah.
It's all in there. It's all in there. And I'm like, that's, the course that I taught about sacred sexual healing and the gift that I have for everybody here is
Mhm.
teases all that out.
Mhm.
Okay. So you can find out what was said where, how. Oh my God. Why? I mean, because this is even in the Greek tradition that the sexes were split way back.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit. I was just getting into your free gift earlier this morning, and I want to kind of talk a little bit around, maybe kind of go down a different road slightly around how the union of Mary Magdalene and Yeshua, and their tantric union, and even the fact that they didn't get to be together their whole life long, right? They were often doing their own priestessing and priest work out in the world, and then they would come together and they could do energetic lovemaking as well. So they didn't have to be together in order to be in union with one another.
Right.
And I personally have had some really profound experiences, like in the Carrowkeels of Ireland. I was out in the middle of nowhere, looking for these caves, basically these ancient burial tombs, and got lost and couldn't find my way and had no fucking cell phone and nobody knew where I was, just me and the sheep out in the middle of fucking nowhere, right?
And there's a lot of them over
a lot
there.
of sheep.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I
talk
just
about
was
biblical.
Yeah, totally. And I was like, where are these things? And I got off the trail, and then I couldn't, and I was like, okay, Spirit, just guide me. And Spirit guided me a direction that I didn't think was the right direction, but I just kept going that way. And I found this church. And I just stood there. It was like a ruins of an old church. And so I just stood there for a long time and just listened and felt, and until Spirit was like, go this way. And so then I went this other way. And and it was getting dark and the rain was starting to come down. And like, I should have figured out how I was going to get back to the car, And so finally I did find the ancient burial ground. And at that point it was pelting rain, and it was getting really windy and dark.
Cold?
And it was cold. Yes.
It's always cold in
It's
Ireland.
always cold in
right?
Ireland.
Yeah.
It's going to be my first question. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like being cold.
I know. I've bought it. And it's just like, oh my God, this sounds like a nightmare.
Like, I don't mind being wet. But
yeah.
as long as
I'm always
warm.
cold. I'm freezing all the time.
I'm freezing
That's
all
why
the
I moved
time.
to Santa Barbara, so I could have warm feet,
Yeah, good for you. Yeah.
So there I was. I finally found it, and I was like, gosh, should I go in? And you have to kind of like get on your butt and scoot down and get dropped down into this ancient tomb. And so I did. And and I at first, like, my heart was pumping. It was pitch black. Couldn't see a thing in there. My heart's pumping, and I just felt fear, like so much fear. And then I started to breathe more deeply and like calm myself, and just started to touch the walls of this ancient tomb, right?
Wow.
With like all this energy in it. And I'm such an energy whore. So I was just like feeling it. And then I started to sing, and the singing really calmed my nervous system. And then I just sat down on the ground for a long time. And this was probably like a 2-hour event. I sat down on the ground and I just listened and felt. And eventually, Inanna came to my back, who's always been one of my goddesses, one of my
One of your OGs.
One of my OGs since before I knew what a fucking goddess was. When I was a kid, I don't know where she came from. She's always been with me. She came to my back and she was just like, I got you. I'm holding your back. Lean into me. And so I started to just like have these creatic waves of orgasmic bliss and pleasure, which basically opened my legs, opened my yoni, opened my womb. And then I felt this like warm, penetrating phallus of energy up through my yoni and all the way up through my whole Sushumna nadi, which is the chakra line.
Wow.
And I was like, what is that? And it just Yeshua was what came, and so it was like I was in a cosmic yob yum with Yeshua and Inanna running the microcosmic orbit. I mean, it was one of the most profound tantric experiences of my life. And so I know the value of like, being in union with these like primordial forces. But I want you to share with our audience what's possible through your teachings and what could open up for them.
Yeah, for like the modern day person, what's possible.
Yeah, because I'm not modern at all.
Neither am I,
Well,
really,
technically,
apparently.
No.
You are the modern, you live in the modern age, which, by
Well,
definition makes you a modern person. even if you are an old ancient soul.
Yeah,
totally.
that's right. I remember it all from the past. Well, unfortunately, there's nothing in my classes that's going to give people that kind of experience. However, it might be able to
information.
The information and to prepare people for that, because sometimes the knowing is like 50% of the way to those orgasmic waves.
Yeah.
And then, mantra practices and that I also offer through the Holy Womb Chakra teachings. I really believe in it. I mean, it will clear you out, It will clear out heartache, clear out all that unwanted touch, everything. So there are stages of preparation, and I think what I offer are more the initial stages of preparation, and what you ladies clearly, amazingly are doing and experiencing are the actual, orgasmic journeys, right? That you're helping people to go on, which is the needed part of it. We do need to actually then physically get into our yonis and do it, right? So, that's what I would say. But I think there is so much information we need to have, and that's why I have that gift. Meet Magdalene and Jesus as your sexual guides. If people end up taking the Sacred Relationship and Sexual Healing with Magdalene and Jesus course, there's also an amazing workshop it's a bonus seminar called The Travesty of Sexual Abuse and Abduction and How to Clear It from Your Field and the Human Matrix. Okay, so all of this, what I was talking about earlier, so all of this stuff goes together. And I just love how, there have been and there are especially women of younger generations now taking this stuff into the actual physical practices. No more just yantra, mantra practices, no more just thinking about it, but actually getting into our wombs, doing these things, having the safe touch, So I really honor you for that. It's so, so needed.
Yeah, well, I want to honor you for really bringing this information forth, because I wouldn't have had that experience if I hadn't read books and gotten that, some
the insight of what exists
of all of that previous to that experience. And so when I was reading your book that you sent me, the one that was so deep on Mother Mary.
Yes, The Secret Life of Mother Mary.
The Secret Life of Mother Mary. Fuck, I fell in love with Mother Mary all over again.
I know.
It was really powerful. And for someone who grew up in the Catholic religion, in the Christian and Catholic church, my dad is Mr. Bible, Mr. Catholic man, and my whole family, my grandparents had 15 kids because they didn't believe in birth control, right?
Whoa,
big fucking Catholic family,
and
in a small town, and so but the whole time I would sit in the church, I'd be like, this is wrong, this is right, myself could feel it,
No, we all knew.
And I've been able to go down the track, a spiritual track and an opening and an awakening track to there was truth here, but it's this is what it feels like to me. This is what feels like truth to me. And so it feels I can relate to my dad in this really cool, unique, special way. I have to keep certain things under wraps, but we can still bond over that, over Jesus,
That's right.
the power of Jesus.
I know, because
really
the work that I'm doing is really allowing people to reclaim the true essence nature of Mary Magdalene, of Mother Mary, of Yeshua, the stream, the eternal stream that's under all those, religious formations that started ensnaring us and everything, So if people can meet you down there, then, you have something to talk about. And right, people come in from all different angles, though.
I have to say, Willow, it's always so sweet. I feel the emotion in you, rising, and the real tenderness that this lives inside of you with the connection to your dad. And I think that's just so beautiful. I'm just having this moment of just being utterly in love with you right now, feeling all the love that's swimming in your system in relationship to your dad, who's really the first guy we ever get to fall in love with.
Mm-hmm.
And you have such a special connection to yours. And so I'm just letting you know I'm feeling all your feels. It's really yummy.
Oh,
I had such a deep experience this morning.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
You want to share about it?
Kind of, but I'm just going to be weepy the whole time.
But see,
Yeah.
this is part
We
of the
love this
healing.
part.
This is part of the healing of the feminine and the
Totally.
masculine. So, these
I
stories
was
are.
just doing my normal beach walk this morning with my little dog River in Montecito. I'm waking up in Montecito these days, darling, and it's very posh and lovely. So anyway, there I was, and I was like, man, what is this fear? Fear, where is it? It's in the pit of my stomach. And I did a whole somato emotional release on myself. And underneath the fear was like this longing, which was a shadow. The shadow of longing is not having, right? And it was like, it's just so deep. It was like the not having of partner, of man, right, in my life yet.
Oh,
And
know
so,
though. Yeah.
Yeah.
and so, so I went to that longing, which like the true longing is just eros. It's drive, it's desire. It keeps me going. It keeps me
Juicy.
reaching,
Mhm.
when exploring. And and so this this longing, I started talking to it, and it was like, well, you have everything you long for already.
Mhm.
And and then my dad came in, which is
Mhm.
like, I have like the best dad in the world.
Yeah.
Oh, bless
You have
your
amazing
heart,
men in
honey.
your life.
Yeah,
Wow,
amazing brothers, amazing dad.
That's gorgeous.
And then like I had just been with my dad for 2 days, and we had just been talking about like how, God loves his children. Like, so he wants to give them everything that that they want, they desire, that they have
That's
eros
right.
for. So it's a cycle, actually. The longing is just, it's the that you have it already. So there's
Yeah.
actually no lack shadow
Yeah.
to it. Anyway, I was just
Yeah.
walking on the beach crying and like
Wow,
having
that's so
Crying
that's
in
so
ecstasy?
beautiful.
Pain and
Right,
pleasure all wrapped up
yeah.
in one.
I know, the Gnostic sacrament, there was a
Yeah.
Gnostic sacrament called the bridal chamber, where the woman, each person would have to come and feel their wholeness. They would come to that feeling of wholeness, so that they were walking around feeling whole, which is the actual meaning of virginity. It's feeling whole, being sovereign is being complete, right? Not half, but being whole, getting the opposite that was split when Adam and Eve were split apart. So it sounds like you're doing all this play and work for yourself, and that fragrance, wonderfulness of partnership is just going to come to you at some point. If you've had it, you'll have it again, right? And so
Mhm.
just the right now, you're in the longing phase, but how wonderful that you're just sort of mining it for all of its juice.
I was like siphoning out. I was like, okay, what I feel is like this big, vast, round thing. And I was like, oh, it's a cauldron. And it's this cauldron of sorrow, of not having, of all the years of longing, of being with the
Yeah.
wrong partner,
Oh,
of the
my
lineage
God.
of that, of my, women who came before me, of all the women of
Yes.
all the world. I'm, living in
I
a
know.
situation
Well-
with a couple women right now. And it's like the not having and the longing and all the story around it, or being with the wrong partner and all the
Right.
sorrow.
Right.
And I was just like pulling all this layers and layers of sorrow out. And underneath all of that was like, if you long for something, you actually have it already
I
in
think-
your
Yeah.
life.
I think
It's
what's so
so
interesting
magical.
and what's so ironic is in just the art of longing, right? Because there is the light side of longing that has all that eros in it. And for those
Yeah.
people who are in relationships who could use some longing
Totally.
to sex up the juice, right? In
Right.
the relationship, and who manufacture longing through sometimes cheating and jealousy and some of this
Yes,
other
and
stuff that leaks
creating other
out because what they
problems. For
really want
sure.
to feel again is the yearning.
For sure.
Their
Yes.
soul's yearning. And so how can we bring more consciousness to cultivating longing? Because longing is also built on anticipation. And
Yeah.
sometimes the best part of sex is the anticipation of sex. I think a lot of for vulva owning bodies. It's like, oh God, make me beg for it. Like, get so close that I just want to rip your head off if you don't touch it, but
That's
like
right.
really expand that lengthen that out for me so that I can crawl out of my skin instead of feeling like you're coming at it so fast that I got to back up. And there's
Right.
no
Yes.
longing to sink into. So
Right.
isn't it so cool that
Yeah.
longing means so much? And
Yeah.
sometimes it's an obstacle that we have to overcome in order to fully indulge. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's a thing that we have to cultivate in order to expand. And other times it's a thing that we have to grieve and get
Mhm.
lost in. It's
Yes.
it's so rich as a
My
concept.
God.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
One of the things, if I can just pivot just a little bit as we wrap up today, is the use of sacraments, right? Because I think a lot of people do have these transcendent experiences in sex. And when they have them, or if they've had them, it's been under the influence, oftentimes of a psychedelic. My last experience of feeling this, if we were going to call it a virgin birth, happened to me when I did Bufo. And through the experience of DMT, I went into that letting go into that medicine with the realization that I was fucking God. And as I was
Wow.
coming out of my experience fully in full rapture with the divine, and thankfully somebody videoed me in this
Wow.
experience. You can see my body in the full movement of this crazy epic sex, which then as my conscious awareness grew more lucid and more lucid, then I was in the throes of giving birth to God. So I had this full
Wow.
experience
There's
of
Mother Mary.
fucking, ending the journey,
Okay.
giving birth to God, and then just weeping. Like
Mhm.
sobs of the
Mm.
earth coming
Yeah.
out of me at the end of it, having found a certain kind of wholeness
Yeah.
Yeah.
in the letting go of something really painful. And I didn't have the full narrative of the story of whatever was being shed. I just trusted that whatever I was letting go of was
Wow.
of epic proportions.
It was. I mean, both of you, like all of us, you were doing work for the collective,
Yeah.
for like timelines and
Yeah.
amazing, and I kind of, that's what I was saying at the very beginning. It's kind of a good way to conclude, that Mother Mary had something of that. I've often thought of writing a blog or something called Mother Mary's Orgasm, but I
Oh, I
pretty much
love
just-
that.
Great
That's
topic.
good.
Substack,
Yeah.
here
All
we
right,
come.
that's
Yeah,
the way.
totally.
Yeah, but because there had to be such a cosmic explosion,
Yeah.
or implosion,
Maybe
really.
we'll call
is
this
the
interview
female way.
Mother Mary's Org.
Do what you will, all right? Whatever you think is best, you're the ladies to do it, clearly. But yeah, that, and then how interesting
hot
that.
flash all of a sudden.
Well, I'm going to sit around you two, like you were saying, be around people that are your mentors. Okay, you guys, you ladies, you women are my mentors.
Ditto.
But it's so interesting to me how, like, right as you were having all of those waves, then all of a sudden you were giving birth to God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is parthenogenesis
That
right
is.
there.
That
Yeah.
is, yeah.
Yeah. Ding, ding, ding.
So we've come full circle in a topic that you didn't know if it was off topic.
I
for
didn't
you
know
or
the
whatever.
name.
And it's just like,
Janet,
no,
here
we
I've
can
had the experience.
Roxy and I are like, we can guarantee you it's going to be on topic. There are so many topics.
God, I
love
love
it.
it. So
Yeah.
tell us, please give us the titles of your book so that people can find them.
Okay. So the most recent is, as you were mentioning, Willow, The Secret Life of Mother Mary. And that's just
Great.
taking the veils off of her, understanding who she was really and
Mhm.
who she is now still for us, right? Healer, mentor, spiritual guide.
Mhm.
Prior to that was the mystery tradition of miraculous conception. That's about what is this virgin birth business all about, who was doing it, and how was Mother Mary involved in this, which was a huge tradition that had been going on for thousands of years, all right? And then prior to that are the two academic books that I mentioned, The Cult of Divine Birth in Ancient Greece, which talks a lot about what is virginity, who are these virgin priestesses, what were they doing in Greece? And I don't even talk about Mother Mary there. Who are the Vestal virgins? And then Virgin Mother Goddesses of Antiquity, where half the book is all about the Eleusinian mysteries, that death rebirth experience as a very sexual one that also had a divine conception process in it. So those are the 4 books as of right now. And
they
Are any
can
of them
all
on
be
Audible?
found on your website or on Audible?
they can all be found on Amazon. The last 2 are in Audible. Yes.
Okay, great.
The first 2, no, they're hot, more academic, very readable and interesting. But the second 2 are very, very readable. Like they're very grounded, but people can read them like chin chin chin. And
Great.
it's opening up doorways for people.
We will
exciting.
have all of these links in the show
right.
notes, which you can find on our website. So
Right.
if you're listening to this episode right now, maybe you're on Apple, maybe you're on Spotify, maybe you're listening on YouTube, just click on the show notes. We'll have a link directly so you can get all these goodies and including a link
Enjoy.
for the free gift.
That's right.
That's
This
right.
free gift is amazing. Don't let it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if
you'll
you've really
enjoy it.
Yeah.
If you've
You'll
enjoyed
enjoy
this
it.
episode, this is your moment right now. Look at your phone and click subscribe. Click like and give us a comment. What did you get out of this program today? What are you excited about? What is this making you think of? How is your upbringing different than all the information we just laid down for you today? Because if it's like ours, it's a real, we didn't grow up with any of this stuff. So it's kind
No.
of, it's interesting, right? So share with us what you know about some of these mystical sexual realms and let's
Yes.
keep the conversation going. Now, remember, the show is not over. Stay tuned because Dr. Willow and I are going to do the dish and we're going to dish it up, folks. Thank you so much, Marguerite, for being our guest today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I mean, we had so many obstacles to this happening because of the intensity. They're like, no, we don't want that information out.
Yeah.
And now it's like, oh my God, connecting up religion and sexuality. I don't know. But here we are.
Here we
we are.
We
That's
made
what-
it.
That's where we're going.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you
And
so much.
blessings
So
to
much.
you on
Such
your
a
amazing
pleasure
work.
to
Wow.
meet
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Aw,
much.
Thank you. Thank
Okay,
you.
love, love, love.
Mutual admiration.
Mwah.
Bye.
Ciao.
Bye.
Now, our favorite part, the dish.
Okay, here we go. So, Marguerite Rigoglioso. It's a very Italian name. Yeah, and I loved it. Rigoglioso.
Yoso. Yeah, cool name.
I loved it at the end when she got all Jewish, Italian, like New York mama on us. That was cute.
So cute.
Yeah, I mean, what a fun conversation for me. You know, I'm such a geek about all this stuff. I've been following the rose codes and the Magdalene lineage for decades, it feels like, and have read so many books that have really lit up my relationship to Tantra through
that lens.
yeah, through that lens. And I think also, you know, being raised Catholic and then making sense of it and just being like, oh, there are just like a lot of ahas and a lot of moments of like, oh, yeah, okay, there's the truth. I mean, you can feel it when something is true in your body, you feel it and you just know that's what's true
That's
for
what
you.
you trust.
Yeah. And
I
true
really
is
wanna read
such a
all of
matter
her
of
books.
perspective. I know.
Yeah.
You should. I want to read the Elysium one.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wish I was going with you guys to that temple.
I know.
What the
Well,
hell?
you know what? We have time between on the 16th when we get home because we fly really early to Athens.
Uh-huh.
So we do have time
Oh,
to
let's
go to the temple. And I
Let's
was
go.
thinking of that because I think Usia,
Would love
that would
it.
be really, really impactful
Cool
for her.
Okay.
Yeah. And then Matt gets to shine and
Okay.
share all the things.
Okay,
and there's a
good.
beautiful cafe right next door.
Oh, good. Let's do it.
Yeah. It's a 45-minute cab ride, or we can maybe
All right,
take the train.
Perfect. So back to our dish.
Back to our dish. Yeah. So, you know, I really I was so much easier for me to believe all of this at a younger time in my life. And then I would say I got really skeptical of everything. I don't know, maybe, God, I keep saying 5 years, but it was probably 8 years ago. Where I
Definitely,
really started
yeah.
to question all of this. You know, especially when people channeled shit. And I'm like, okay, yeah, whatever you're plugging into the universe, you go ahead and believe you're channeling. And
You channel all the time, honey.
you're at that, but I would never call it that. Like, oh, I channeled this great piece of thing, you know, like, I don't know. I get a little judgy, you know, I have
Yeah.
to admit, and I, that's really not the fun part. That's not a joy-filled attitude to have is to become a skeptic and to, you know, kind of squeeze my eye a little bit towards someone and go, I don't know that I'm picking up what you're putting down. So so I kind of felt that in the beginning, but then towards the end, I'm feeling like filled with joy and filled with curiosity. And now I want to read all the books. And so I'm having like a different experience, which I'm like, well, I'd much rather prefer the magic of what's awaiting when we pull the veil behind something. And the truth of the matter is, who cares if it's factually true or not? What does it spark and open inside of you? That should be the testimony of, because I want to live a joy-filled life. So if this opens doors to joy-filledness,
then follow that
why
door.
would you deny it?
Open that door. Yeah, well, one of the things that I really love about her books is they are based in tons of research. Like, she's a full fucking scholar. I've read all the channeled books, and I've read a bunch of the scholarly books, Megan Watterson's books. And, I love them all. They all bring a really important... There was a whole... scripture. Mary Magdalene's had her own part of the Bible that actually was taken out. And there is a really cool book, Mary Magdalene Revealed. I forget the name of the author. I don't know if it's Megan Watterson, maybe a different one. But anyway, she found little segments, little pieces of the scripture, and then just gave her synopsis based on her long study of all of the study. And so Marguerite's she's a deep scholar, and it's not just, her stuff her books are not channeled, actually.
Right. Yeah. Let's be clear.
They're very,
she was, because when I was asking her, like, so how'd you learn all this stuff anyway?
Yeah.
So, real legitimate person here.
Yeah.
I do have to bring up the patriarchy stuff.
Okay.
Because I think we are misguided. And I know this is sort of rooted in feminism. And I was once a feminist. I no longer identify as a feminist. And I'll tell you, it's because I don't like the separateness that is a part of the conversation when we villainize the patriarchy. Do I think that there are parts of the patriarchy that are filled with suppression and toxicity? Totally. But never is it a part of the conversation, the noble part of the patriarchy. There are the healthy patriarchy. And so that's just something that kind of rubs me wrong, because I think many of us have a patriarchal figure in our family, and they've earned that title, in my opinion. Like, they are beautiful, good, wonderful men who are, at the pinnacle of the family, who we get to look up to and have respect for. Matt's dad comes to mind when I think about the patriarch of the family. That doesn't mean there's not a matriarch of the family too, who we also all look up to, who holds the family. And so to me, I think it's not either or. In so many conversations where the patriarchy gets brought up, there's never a balance. There's only this villainization of the patriarchy. And I think we do culture a disservice when we continue to pick sides, and it becomes this way that we become separate. And I'm more interested in us finding ways to become non-separate. So how can we take the patriarchy and make it more noble versus keep this storyline of its villainous attributes? Like, if we're going to transform the patriarchy, I don't think it's about doing away with it. I believe it's about changing the narrative so that we can rise towards something that's actually really beautiful, that complements what also exists within the matriarchy. This either or thing just gets under my fucking nerves, because then we take the matriarchy. It's like, there are always women who are down with the patriarchy, and then they're all about the matriarchy, as if there's not toxic shit that's got to be in connection with the matriarchy too. So I don't know. I just have to fucking say that. There, I'm done.
Okay, rant over.
Yeah, rant over.
Good rant. I mean, I agree with a lot of what you're saying. I think there's a lot of value in patriarchy. I think, if you read Rianne Eisler's book, The Chalice and the Blade, that book really talks about the transition from matriarchy to patriarchy as a societal whole, and the oppression of the feminine model. I think that is where the negativity
Sure.
around
Plus, like thousands of years of women's
patriarchy
sexuality
comes
being
in.
repressed,
Yeah,
and
of course. all of
virginity
that.
and being like the highest virtue a woman could possibly offer
Right.
somebody. Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
yang is definitely not more valuable than yin, and yin is not more valuable. We need
Yeah.
both. You
Well,
know, we need
even
the balance.
when a lot of people talk about the yang, they also are talking it from a negative perspective.
Totally.
Instead of seeing it, it's just like this incredible force in
Oh,
the
it's
universe. It's just an energetic
fantastic.
difference from
Yeah.
yin. You know,
Yeah.
it's not one is better than the other. It's just
Yeah.
that if we're only living in the yang,
You know,
then
and
we're
I think
missing out on the beauty of the yin.
exactly. And I think a lot of the work that we're doing, you and I personally, Leah, with, you know, clients and groups and individuals is like teaching the feminine how to support and augment and uplift the masculine in a way where they are coming through with so much love and light rather than I've got to get on top in order to be the winner and the success. I have to oppress and, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, inside of sexuality is one of the root places that we get to do this as women, which is like helping, understanding and knowing your own system and your own body to such a degree that you can help any man that you're with in that intimate arena be a total success.
Yeah, and I think what it calls us to do is instead of competition, the light side of competition is collaboration. And so if we can take how we are competitive, someone has to win, and instead transmute that to how can we win together where
Yeah.
everyone wins, then we become a collaboration. It's kind of what, when we are looking at our own inner yin and yang, our own inner masculine and feminine, it's about being having an integration between yin
Exactly.
and yang inside of ourselves, which is a collaboration.
Yes.
You know, and I think sometimes even within our own beings, we are warring between yin and yang in our own bodies.
100%.
You know, when it's like
All the time.
if you feel that energy where it's like, I feel like I'm in this, like my masculine's always taking over. It's like, it's not about going to war and forcing your feminine to come through. It's about finding a collaboration and asking your masculine to facilitate your feminine having
Yeah.
more space to
Hold
play.
space for that. Exactly. Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
look at us.
Well done.
That was fun.
Well done,
Okay.
us.
This is a long episode.
A long dish.
Yeah.
All right,
Okay,
y'all.
everybody.
Sending you
Love,
much
love,
love. Ciao.
Thanks for tuning in. This episode was hosted by Tantric Sex Master Coach and Positive Psychology Facilitator Leah Piper, as well as by Chinese and Functional Medicine Doctor and Taoist Sexology Teacher Dr. Willow Brown. Don't forget, your comments, likes, subscribes, and suggestions matter. Let's realize this new world together.